You know me, and you know that I tend to quote the founding father of our country, George Washington. George Washington said it would be peculiar and proper to omit in this first official act my fervent supplications to that almighty being who rules over the universe, who presides in the councils of nations, and whose providential aids can supply every human defect. We need to go back to recognition that God's hand is still on this country and on this campaign. Without God, we will never return to the greatness we were meant to have. We must be good again before we can be great. And we will never be good again without God. God is the author of our goodness. You know, I think that the voters of Alabama have just sent a powerful message to Washington, D.C. A resounding message that can't be denied. They want to stop playing games with the people of America. They want them to stop playing games with the people of Alabama and with the people of America. It's time to get up and start getting busy to bring about real change in our country. We need change in their health care. We need to repeal Obamacare. That's very simple. We need to border security yesterday. These comments about, well, it's going to take us a year, it's going to take us 2 years, that could be stopped within 1 week if we commit the military to do what they've done before under the Posse Comitatus Act and support the Border Patrol. We got to stop allowing our country to be ruled by justices on the Supreme Court who have put themselves above the law. They should be impeached and removed. And we need true tax reform, not just changing brackets and playing a game with the people of Alabama and the people of America. We need to go back and look at taxes like the fair tax, which taxes consumption and not income. It would take a constitutional amendment, but we need to do some drastic things, get rid of the IRS, and start making a tax that is fair. We need to bring business back into our country, and we can do that very simply by cutting regulations, cutting taxes on businesses, and making it profitable for them to do business in this country again. We need to make Made in America mean something. And we need to revoke unfair free trade agreements that have been unfairly taking business from our country. And finally, we need to return prayer and the recognition of God to our public arena. This election, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, is not over. There's much left to do. I'm running to make a difference in Washington, and those in Washington are scared. They have been scared from the very beginning. Mitch McConnell on July 2nd said he didn't want a conservative rebel in the GOP that would be difficult to manage. Evidently, he wants one he can manage. You know, I want to say something special. One of the candidates that we campaigned against was Congressman Mo Brooks. Congressman Mo Brooks ran an ethical campaign. He suffered much of the earlier negatives of the Strange campaign. He, like others who stood against the Washington crowd, deserved better. If the Republican Party doesn't stand for ethical conduct, who will in Washington? Not only did those who support Luther Strange attack me, they did something worse. They attacked my wife and the foundation which we worked for many years to establish. They presented false ads, as you well know. Those ads have been proven false by Channel 13 investigative reporting, and you can find that on roymore.org at the news section. Over $1.2 million was spent last week on ads. Mr. Strange's response is that his involvement with such ads is that he deflects any relationship with Mitch McConnell. If you believe that, I've got some prime swampland in Florida I'd like to sell you. The people of Alabama will have a clear choice on September 26th as to who will represent them in the United States Senate. Will they choose a voice for Alabama or a voice for the Washington elite? It's very clear. Let me warn you about what is about to happen, and the news media had better beware. They're going to present the most negative campaign ads in the history of Alabama, and Luther Strange will tell you he has nothing to do with it. And if you believe that, they must be stopped. You know, I've been a fighter all my life. All my life. I fought as a farm boy to come up through the United States Military Academy. I fought in Vietnam to defend my country. I fought in the judicial branch to stand up for traditional marriage. I fought to retain the acknowledgement of God through a display of the Ten Commandments in the judicial building. In this race, I'll fight to see that the people of Alabama will retain their voice in the United States Senate. May God bless you in the state of Alabama, in the United States of America. Thank you.
From WBRN Radio in Boston and on the Boston Red Network, the title of our episode, Mitch McConnell Loses in Alabama. On the 16th of August 2017, we were pondering the title of the episode, Would We Save a DJ Trump Loss in Alabama? But because DJ Trump played, as they say, not the starring role, but as one of the major characters in this little episode. The headline in the Washington Post says it all, but Luther Strange, we call him Luther Strange Love, he's also called Big Luther, will face Roy Moore, Justice Roy Moore, former Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, in a runoff. Now, Strange Love was endorsed by DJ Trump, the National Rifle Association, Mitch McConnell, and his PAC, which spent $2.5 million on TV ads to boost him in the primary. They helped him pass Mo Brooks. Mo Brooks, was a representative in and still is in Alabama that is running for re-election in 2018. On the Democratic side, Doug Jones, won't say very much about Doug Jones. You'll hear about him in the last of the broadcast. We came in here with the victory speech from Justice Moore, who is running basically about 40%. Let me just get the precise figures here for Justice Moore. Wait a minute, just a second here. Here we go. Justice Moore at the current time is at 38.9% of the vote. He has 162,570. Luther Strangelove is at 32.8% of the vote, 136,910 votes, and Brooks came in with 19.7% at 82,363 votes. The negative ads at the start were aimed at Brooks because they considered Brooks to be the most serious contender. Let me get back to the format here of how all of this came about. Strange, second place, showing despite his incumbent status as a slim victory. Well, I would disagree there. It's not a victory for DJ Trump at all. Strange arrived in a crowded event here. There was a little worry in the hotel ballroom at the president's stumbling response to the Charlottesville murder and massacre there would be a problem in the runoff. Conservatives say they would continue to back DJ Trump over his criticism. We'll talk about that in a minute. The Reverend Dr. Al Sharpton, the national leader, has a commentary in The Guardian, and we'll get it. He said, well, both sides are to blame. This is DJ Trump. It was a bunch of radicals that set things up said George Williams, a member of the Republican National Committee of African American Advisory Council. I was in Washington for the inauguration, and you should have seen the destruction they caused. It was out of control. Just craziness. Let me thank the President of the United States. This was Strangelove said the victory. He loves the people of Alabama. Anyway, that is up a debate situation. Some of Strange's supporters hesitate to talk about Trump's comments on Wednesday. He just reaffirmed what he had said earlier, that he supported alt-right. That the Democrats were fooling themselves and thinking that they could make this race competitive. The Democratic Party there, well, they'll have to wait. Brian Ellis, chief executive of a conservative Yellowhammer news site who attended Strange's rally, said Strange support from Trump would continue to help him through the election, no matter the president's stumbles. That could be correct analysis in Alabama. But we will see. A lot of this depends on where his polling numbers are, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We haven't seen any precipitous fall there. Big Luther was appointed to the seat that Beauregard Sessions now, or used to have. He was a senator for 20 years from Alabama. Nothing new there. Period. So we don't know. I was just checking to see this Brian Ellis knew another. There's a lot of Brian Ellises running around, so I'm not certain as to which Brian Ellis we are dealing with here. No doubt there are a bunch of those characters out here. Period. Anyway, let us roll on here with this. Not sure what's going on there. Anyway, Brooks and Brooks attacked Ellis as part of as a pawn from McConnell and Leadership Fund and the One Nation Super PAC. They're the ones that they actually spent about $4 million in this contest. Now, Brooks was a member of the Freedom Caucus. If you remember those people, he was endorsed by Lion Ted Cruz and several others. He's in Huntsville, Alabama is where he is there. Period. A lot of mudslinging, and mudslinging will continue, no doubt about it. The Democrat, Doug Jones, we don't need to get into Doug Jones at this point in time, but the Post has a winners and losers situation here as to who won, who lost, etc. Of course, winners here, Justice Moore, no doubt about it. Luther Strangelove got support from DJ Trump, and Brooks got Sean Hannity and Coulter, and Moore got the most votes in Alabama. Now, it's very interesting how they phrase that out there. A former judge is nothing if not resilient. That's according to David Wedgett. Noted in the election preview. Of course, he gained a national, this is Justice Moore with his Ten Commandments statute, and his refusal to let JPs in Alabama allow them to refuse a same-sex marriage license. And also here as winners, they mentioned Doug Moore, this guy named Robert F. Kennedy, a poll showed that he was 21 points ahead. Beauregard Sessions, the inability of any count to meet the 50% threshold needed to avoid a runoff, is a reminder of how dominant Beauregard was in Alabama politics. And Sassy the horse. Now that's the horse that Judge Moore rode up on to the polls. So they now have the horse as as a winner in this race. And also somebody named Kathy Allen. She's the family physician, secured the Democratic nomination in District 3. I could bet 2 months ago she had an easy election night of anyone and long shot to beat. Now John Curtis is a guy that will take, let me see, he's the apparent victor. That's in Utah 3. We jumped out of Utah. The losers here, seat.Strange, the incumbent, underachieved in Alabama, plain and simple. Old Lufa just couldn't, as they say, couldn't get it done, period. Outside forces pumped $3.8 million into that race, and he still couldn't get it done with all the endorsements he had, the backing of seat.Strangelove, and it caused a rip between some of his allies there, Steve Hannity, Laura Ingraham, and Coulter. They endorsed Brooks. Mark Levin, a less enthusiastic Trump supporter, also endorsed Brooks. You can see where this is all going, and criticized the president for getting behind Strangelove. Hannity, Ingraham, and company. Brooks finished third and was eliminated in the battle. The pundits versus the president, nobody won in that one. And the Alabama registered voter was a loser, also arrived at the polls. Some Alabamans arrived there, and they were on the inactive list. Among those, it's kind of funny here, was Brooks himself, who was, of course, trying to vote for himself. I don't know if he did or he didn't. I guess he did on some sort of provisional situation here, that he actually had an opportunity to vote. A little bit of the polling here. The Trafalgar group, that's a Republican polling house, had it just about right. This was on Monday. They predicted Roy Moore at 38%, seat.Strangelove at 24%, and Brooks at 17%. I think he ended up with 18 there. Moore was ahead by 14 in their poll. Now the Emerson poll had Strange ahead by 3, 33 to 28. They did not come close in this particular situation. They were off by almost by about 10 points of where he actually finished up. Now today's polling, the Gallup people have DJ Trump at 36. They're the most consistent in this polling situation. Mehmet poll at 42 for DJ Trump, his disapproval at 49, and with Gallup, his disapproval is at 59. The Rasmussen disapproval is at wait a minute here, just a second here, at 57. His approval is at 42. The Marxist College is upstate New York at 37%, also disapproval at 56, so it's 18 plus 18 for disapproval there. And the generic ballot here, Democrats ahead. This is at Marx. It's 47 240 for the Republicans. Don't pay much attention to it at this stage of the game. Some posters does. There's a model that Professor at Emory University there that uses that particular model, his model there, that includes that particular situation. Now, there was on Friday the Trafalgar group basically about the same thing. They had Moore at 38 and Strange at 23. So he actually finished hit it at 38 to 32, a little bit better. So he started to gain if you looked at Fridays. But however, if you go back to the last poll on Monday, basically about the same. Let's see, Strange was at where was he? at 24% for old Luther. Did a little better than that, actually. So the polling was a little off, but Roy Moore finished about the same. Strange overperformed, I guess you'd say, there to make it a much closer race. Brooks stayed basically the same. He's 19.7, and let me look back here and see where they had old Brooks, I should say, at 17 was where they had him. So basically about the same in their looking at this. Now the DJ Trump part of this whole angle by Dr. Sharpton, In America, Bias, Hate, and Racism moves from the margins to the mainstream. This weekend, the world watched a tragic unfolding in Charlottesville, Virginia. A woman named Heather Hillier lost her life, and 19 others were injured. What occurred in Charlottesville is a horrible. Wait a minute, hold on here. Is a horrific, example of hate unleashed itself in the American streets in 2017. But we must keep in mind that Charlottesville is a symptom, and we must deal with the cause. Hate, bias, and racism that has been empowered and taken from the margins into the mainstream. We must come to terms with the fact that the President of the United States has played a role in emboldening of these hate groups to come out of the shadows. Those of us in New York have known for many years that Donald Trump is not above what's called dog whistling to people in certain groups. That's a silent whistle that usually cannot be picked up by the human ear. In the 80s, he bought 4 full-page ads in major newspapers calling the death penalty to be reinstated in New York against 5 African-American Latino kids in the what was known as the Central Park jogger rape case. These kids, known as the Central Park 5, were later exonerated, but Trump never apologized. When Barack Obama, the first African-American president, was in office, Trump kept pushing conspiracy theories that Obama was not a natural-born citizen and had the audacity to demand that Obama released his birth certificate, college transcript, passport records, and more. He continued pushing that idea that Obama was somewhat not really an American. He was yet another sowing seeds of division for his own advancement. From the start of this campaign for the presidency throughout the election cycle, Trump's made disparaging remarks about minority groups, never once apologized for any. When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They are not sending you. They are bringing you drugs, bringing you crime, bringing you rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. He said when he first announced his run, he called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims in the U.S. He altered it later, but the message was already heard. These kinds of disparaging remarks were made throughout his campaign, and he did not denounce the support he was receiving from these white supremacist groups and leaders. Now let's look at his response to tragedy in Charlottesville, which was effectively no response. As someone who has reacted to everyone and everything by name, including me, Trump's inability to say the word KKK, Nazis are white supremacists right away, he was pushed on Monday. Dr. Sharpton in this article didn't have time to say that he revised that on Tuesday. Nonetheless, ministers and civil rights leaders like myself are not only disgusted by the lack of leadership in the White House, but we're also tired of the silence of others. That is why we're mobilizing from the ground up, gathering in the nation's capital on the 27th of August for a ministers' march for justice. Rabbis, imam, ministers will join together. 1,000 of us. We are pushing for continual civil and social justice rights. Hold this administration accountable. Those filled with hate gathered at the statue of Robert E. Lee will gather at the statue. We will gather at the statue of Martin Luther King. during these difficult and tenuous times, people look towards elitists to calm tension and encourage people to come together against evil. They don't. When they don't speak, that speaks volume. When they don't, excuse me. What we have just witnessed this weekend was a president who did more than just ignore the problems of white supremacy. He failed to immediately show the moral courage and leadership required by one who is at the head of the highest office in the land. Dr. Al Sharpton is a Baptist minister, civil rights leader, and a talk show host. He's writing in The Guardian on Monday the 14th. Evidently the article was prepared before DJ Trump had his rampage, as they say, of the place. Let me just make sure that we didn't leave anything out of our Alabama part of the coverage that we were working on here. Get back to it. Here we go. Oh, no. This is Emerson. We don't need to do the Emerson College. We did that in another broadcast where we actually looked at Emerson College. And Emerson College came up a little bit short of where we actually wanted to go with it. So we kind of moved back from that. We'll have, as we end here, a little, I guess we'll call it summary of events from various news outlets in Alabama from early in the day. And we came in with just as more, and we'll leave with that. Now, this runoff will be on the 26th of September, the last week in September. And the runoff winner will face a Democrat on the 12th of December is when they will face Mr. Jones. So we were looking earlier here. Politico also had a roundup. This is basically just of the Senate leadership pack and how McConnell lost out on the issue there with his leadership pack and these other packs that came in, and the money that was there. And from Representative Henry, a prominent Trump supporter in Alabama, people are angry. They are, and a lot of that anger towards Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, not O'Connell. Anyway, so thus Brooks warned his voters would be less inclined to support McConnell-backed Strange in a runoff, and that they would migrate to more. Well, if that does happen, it'll be a very interesting situation there. DJ Trump, of course, carried Alabama last November at by 30 points. Pro-Strange ads are expected to highlight the president's endorsement, yet the 70-year-old, more well-known commodity in the state could survive Trump-led efforts to save Strange. Now, this is very interesting here. Judge Moore has a core group of followers that believe in his message. That's from Tom Young, a former chief of staff to Richard Selby. He's a senator from Alabama. Even if he ran against Donald Trump, lots of core supporters would support him. So this is where we stand on the 16th of August 2017. Let's do the sports now. And we'll look at a little Michael Bennett story. Remember the Seahawks, he was sitting down at one of the games backed by his brother Martellus Bennett. I don't know Martellus Bennett. But anyway, we'll do the baseball scores. This continual protest within the NFL will continue. Spike Lee, what is it be, next week, I believe, will be leading a demonstration at the NFL headquarters in New York. this will not go away. So there are a lot of things happening out there as components of what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. So this Charlottesville, Virginia is a big thing, as someone once said. I believe it was, who was that said that? We'll figure that one out. Vice President Biden. Anyway, the Astros were in Arizona. Astros 9-4 over the D-backs. The Mets were at the Yankees. Yankees 5-4. The Angels were at the Nationals. Nationals 3-1. The Rays were in Toronto. Rays 6-4 over the Blue Jays. The Cardinals were in Fenway Park. Red Sox at 10-4. The Cardinals had 10 hits, 1 error, and the Red Sox 15 hits, no error. That's the way you win baseball games. The Giants were in Florida. Giants 9-4. Mr. Bumgarner was a winner there. The Pirates and Brewers. Brewers 3-1. The Tigers and Rangers in Texas. Rangers 10-4. The Reds and Cubs in Wrigley. The Reds pulled that one out after the blowout last night. That's usually what happens. Reds 2-1 over the Cubs. The loser Pedro Scope. Anyway, get his name right in a minute here. Cleveland was in the Twin Cities. 8-1 was the score. Cleveland over the Twins. The Atlanta team, where were they? We're in Denver. Atlanta 4-3 over the Rockies. The Royals were in Oakland. Oakland 10-8 in that contest. The Orioles were in Seattle. Mariners 3-1. The White Sox were in Dodger Stadium. That's a game we tuned into. LA 6-1 in that contest. And finally, the Phillies were in San Diego. Padres 8-4. So that is where Major League Baseball stands. Let me just check one other thing out in Seattle. I think they should be finished with the count out there. When you're covering multiple races in multiple places, you have to always check to see where we are going with some of these. I'm not sure we have that up here at this juncture. I assume we did. What's going on actually out in Seattle, Washington? Maybe. No, we don't have it. I guess we. But we had the. We do. Okay, the PI. We had it somewhere around here. Big headline: the PI defends rally organizers. Now that is out of Charlottesville. Nothing new there, but just looking at it. And let's see, we don't have anything here on the race, but I can see. I'll look at the Stranger. This is another newspaper out of. Okay. Well, this I didn't expect to happen. Anyway, Nikita Oliver concedes mayoral race, will not endorse Carrie Moon or Jenny Durkin. Certified the final election results, confirming that Nikita Oliver will not make it through to the general election. At a press conference, Oliver conceded the race, but characterized her campaign as a victory because it offered ideas for the people who directly live through housing instability, racial injustice, and other challenges often talked about by politicians who may not have the same experiences. We have the ability not just to talk at a 30,000-foot view about equality, but to actually bring tangible and real results to the forefront of the discussion, because we live those challenges, Oliver said, as renters, as workers, as black, brown people, as queer and trans communities. We live those challenges every day. The urban planner Moon and Durkin will face off in the November general election. At the final count, Durkin won by 27.9%, Moon 17.6%, Oliver at 16.99%, almost 17%. So roughly 0.6 of a point there. 2 weeks since the primary, Oliver had inched closer to Moon. As the county counted more ballots, Oliver's campaign went ballot chasing, no doubt about that. She fell short by, 1,107 votes. Oliver had come within 1,000, 5.5% to trade. Had she come there, an automatic recount, but they'd have to pay for it. They didn't decide to do that. She's a lawyer, educator, a newly formed People's Party. Her campaign had a furious social media presence and ground game. They knocked 22,000 doors and had 1,401 volunteers, and spent half of the $135,000 raised. Oliver said the People's Party does not plan to endorse either Moon or Durkin. Doing so, she said, would give support to candidates that have not shown their commitment to communities they regularly talk about. But she encouraged her voters to stay engaged. I'd have to think long and hard about that one, because from our perspective, Moon is the closest one. The two candidates in general election are two wealthy white women who regularly in forums would say things like what Nikita said and Oliver said. It's important that these ideas that the party and myself bring into the election are birthed out of living experiences. Those are not lived experiences of these two candidates. Durkin and Moon are going to have to show up in communities that they do not regularly show up in. Oliver said neither one of them has a substantial ground game or organization game in the city. They're going to have to do this, so they will have to organize voters, show that they are committed to equality and race and social justice if they're to have our votes. In short, Moon, who has largely self-funded her race, whose campaign acknowledged she has little ground game. Oliver said some candidates were able to spend $90,000 of their own wealth while talking about income inequality, yet have no ground game, no real community relations. If I regret anything, it's not calling it out sooner. In the future, the People's Party will absolutely run candidates for office, Oliver said, though she did not say whether she would run again in the future. In the immediate term, Oliver said the party will continue holding community listing posts to recommend specific proposals on issues like affordable housing. And they will invite both Durkin and Moon to a debate. The party will focus on organizing around issues including support of Initiative 940, which would increase police de-escalation training and make it easier to prosecute cops who wrongfully kill civilians, and against Initiative 200, which would ban affirmative action. The 90s ban on affirmative action. Update, Durkin praised Oliver for a campaign that exemplifies the voters' dreams, etc. Well, opportunists. For those who didn't support me, I work hard to earn your support, Durkin said. I fundamentally believe that the next mayor has a moral challenge and a deep responsibility to address inequalities facing our city. Well, I hope to, anyway. Moon, I hope to earn the support of every Seattle voter ready to boldly re-envision a city hall that makes a difference in the lives of people through accountable leadership. Moon said, my experience in working in coalitions, my deep roots in civil advocacy, and my 20 years of experience building solutions for the very challenges Seattle faces are the leadership skills the city needs. Well, that is good and fine there from Ms. Moon. But Ms. Moon is up against the Democratic machine. this Durkin is one of these candidates that is a Hillary Clinton clone, and that in itself is not a good thing. It is a very destructive act at best. So this will be an interesting race there. Can Ms. Moon, this is the only question, reach out to people like the People's Party and Ms. Oliver? But at the same time, is there anything there? Now, obviously, she self-funded her campaign, but self-funding can be an interesting situation. Of course, when we start looking at people who self-funded their campaigns, you go to DJ Trump, did a lot of self-funding at the start, and then he got funding and paid himself back. That's a little different situation there. I would take on Ms. Moon is that she is Ms. Moon. She's a sincere person. Didn't have a lot of ground game, and even without a lot of ground game, she was able to come. What if you had 10 percentage points? I think of Durkin. Here that had the Democratic machinery. Now that is itself a ground game of sorts. So Oliver is the key here, and unfortunately, an accommodation could not be made between the two camps, but that sometimes does happen. We'll, of course, leave that to Nikita Oliver. She knows the territory, knows the people. I did think at one time, listen to one of the Moon commercials, that it was a little Pollyannish, saying, that basically she was a very clever person. And no doubt she is a very clever person. She did oppose some developments in Seattle that were not to the best interest of the people of Seattle. But she doesn't have a lot of experience to the particular problems of the kinds of people that Nikita Oliver represents, who is the future of Seattle. Now, you get that through coalitions, but the problem, obviously, we see at this mic is more the Hillary Clinton clone there for business as usual. So we'll have to stay tuned on that. We'll do a program, incidentally, on that. I just wanted to, as they say, sedge to that particular program. On we go to the little roundup out of Alabama that we recorded earlier today. We start out with Judge Roy Moore. Talk to you soon. Good day.
Mark, if you ask the Roy Moore camp, they say the scene is set here at the RSA Activity Center for victory. Take a look. Moore headed to the polls this morning on his horse Sassy, a tradition that's been followed by wins in each of his Chief Justice races. According to poll watchers, they believe the low voter turnout could work in Moore's favor and possibly put him in contention for an outright win. Now, at minimum, they feel safe that Moore will be in a runoff. If that is the case, the campaign says they have no plans to change their message in the next leg of this Senate race. Now, an outright victory for Moore would be significant. He's been outpaced in funding hand over fist by incumbent Luther Strange. Back to you.
All right, Jennifer, thank you.
Guys in jail, and let me tell you something. I thought we had kind of gotten past that, but we obviously haven't, and we got a lot of work to do. And I think the crowds that we're seeing and the solidarity that we're seeing with the people of Charlottesville shows that. But the important thing for us now is to realize that we've got something to do in this state going forward. You know, I come from a background, I grew up in Fairfield, Alabama. I came from a union family of steel workers and coal miners, educated in the public schools of Alabama. And I've been proud to work for a United States Senator that I wish was here tonight because he'd be so proud, Howell Heflin. And I have worked and worked all my life with the help of this incredible family behind me to support the people of this state. We are going to make sure that our message does not change. We're going to have the same message through December that we've had through August. and that is to make sure people in this state have affordable health care, that we don't take people's health care away. We're going to make sure that everybody has an opportunity for a living wage by trying to raise that wage and still keep our businesses thriving. Yes. We want to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, and we're going to work really hard to get that. We want to make sure when it comes to wages that women have an equal opportunity for the same wages for the same work as their male counterparts. We have a lot of work to do, but the issues that we're talking about are those what we have called the kitchen table issues. Those that parents and grandparents and children sit down and talk about at night. They want to make sure that their families are taken care of. Those are the kitchen table issues that we in this state have in common. We have for too long let other people divide us. We're going to stop that with this race through December, and as your United States Senator, I'm going to continue to fight for everybody in this state, one end of the state to the other. The one thing that people have always said, and I am proud to say, I'm going to be an independent voice. I'm not going to be beholden to a president or a party leader. I'm going to be beholden only to the people of the state of Alabama. So tonight we have taken that first step. I want to thank, first and foremost, my mom and dad, who have generally been there with me everywhere I've been. But sometimes age and health catches up to you, but I know they're watching tonight. I want to thank this incredible family I've got behind me, and a daughter and a couple of granddaughters who it was a little bit too late for, my son-in-law, Rep, some great friends. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank the folks that have been in this race.
Doug Jones, the winner of the Democratic primary for U.S. Senate in Alabama, alluding to some Democratic issues like raising the minimum wage and some more universal issues that affect all of us. He calls them kitchen sink issues, speaking tonight at his watch party in Birmingham.
No runoff in that election, but we will have a runoff in the Republican election. We want to show you those numbers tonight. Roy Moore running away with tonight just about with 135,000 votes, 39% of the vote. Luther Strange right behind him with 32% of the vote. Mo Brooks with 20% and Tripp Pittman with 6% of the vote. He is representing Mobile, Alabama, the Baldwin County area. Roy Moore is expected to speak around 9:40 tonight, and we will break in for that.
That's going to do it for this breaking news report, though. Thank you for joining us. We now return you to Hollywood Game Night.
The vote of the people of Alabama has failed. I extend my hand of friendship to my fellow candidates who did not make this runoff to be held on September 26th. Those candidates ran an honorable and ethical campaign. They ran on their own merits and not on the negative attack ads of my opponent in this campaign. I was honored to campaign with them to make America great again. I now invite them to join with me to defeat the Washington crowd led by Mitch McConnell, who attempted to buy the vote of the people of Alabama with millions of money out of the PAC in Washington. I want to thank those of you who have worked so hard to make this campaign a success. I can't begin to address everybody that's helped.